Well, here we are again, Minerva.
Yes, Creative Cronies.
Yeah.
I'm Minerva and this is Arafelle.
Yeah, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I made this statement that this Uranus-Pluto square is the aspect of the decade, and I think I even said the century last time. And I just would like to explain what was meant by that. I mean, not everybody might even understand exactly what aspects are in terms of the orbits of the planets. All the planets are in relationship to each other as they orbit around the sun, and we can see it's a process it's reflected in the sun and moon cycle. We can see that. We can see how things change over the month. But actually it's a cycle that happens in every growth pattern. It's a process.
We're talking about a cycle from conjunction to conjunction. So,
Yes.
for example, from new moon to new moon.
Yes.
And all the phases of the moon in between. And that each of the planets have that kind of relationship to each other. That's what you're talking about, aren't you?
Yes, and it's also the cycle in all cycles, from birth to growth and to ripening, full moon, and then going back into waning and into death and rebirth. I mean, that's a cycle of growth and maturity and rebirth that happens with plants, with animals, with everything. It's a process.
Yes.
And so that can be seen as in the planets' relationship to each other. All the planets have that relationship to every other planet orbiting the sun. And so
Well,
that's...
actually there's an exception to that.
Is there?
Yeah, Venus and Mercury don't have that relationship with the sun because they're always within orb of the sun.
That's right.
Because they're inside, in the solar system. We've got the sun, we've got
that's
Mercury,
true.
Venus,
Yes.
and then we've got Earth, and then we've got Mars, and
Yes.
so on out into space.
Yes.
So, but Venus has a relationship, say, with Jupiter or Saturn.
Yes, true.
Or
Okay.
any of the outer planets, and the same with Mercury. They just don't have that relationship with the sun. And the sun has it with every other planet, and the moon has it with every other planet.
Yeah, thank you. Now, look, I just wanted to say about Uranus and Pluto. That's because that's the one we're talking about, this square. And so if we look back, the last conjunction of those planets, the last time they were in like new moon, new Uranus-Pluto cycle, that was in the 60s. And now we have the waxing square, the right angle.
So that's the first square after the
Conjunction.
So that would be like first quarter moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the first quarter moon, that first quarter Uranus-Pluto. And so if we... and if you go back before the 60s conjunction, you'll come back to the waning square, which was in the 1930s. And I think this is, if you think about what was happening in the 1930s and then what was happening in the 1960s, and now what's happening now, you can see that each time these two outer planets, these powerful outer planets, I mean, they're really heavy duties, Pluto and Uranus, they show the big changes that happen in society, and you can see that things were really happening in the world big time in the 1930s, in the 1960s.
Lots of
and
revolution,
now.
lots of change, lots of economic change,
Yes.
really, especially, and in the 1930s there was kind of a recession going on like we've had going on recently, and we're still on the kind of tail end of.
Yes, and the World War, of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So when you have a new cycle beginning in the 60s, if you look back and see all the things that were happening in the 60s, there was a sort of like a passionate drive for something to change and to become a better in society in the 60s. And now, when you've got the square between these two planets, you get a challenge. The squares are challenging. They're a dynamic aspect. They're a dynamic force. So that's good because it moves things along. But anything that's, if things were going on from the 60s revolutions, now they come back to get challenged. What's happening now? And
right, so it's a testing point, the square, isn't it? It tests what we seeded at the conjunction.
Yeah, especially the waxing square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then, at the opposition point, the full moon point, that would be fruition.
Yeah.
So we had the conjunction in the 60s, we have the testing point now, and then the result of that will be more clear at the time of the opposition.
Yeah, which I
don't know when that happens. It's quite a long way in the future, isn't it?
We'll have to look that up in the Februarists to tell you when that is.
Probably another 40 years away.
But hopefully we'll see a beautiful flowering then of that wonderful vision that came through in the 60s. But now we're getting challenged to actually fulfill that and move away the blocks to that happening. And that's all the evolutionary energy that we see in the world now.
Okay, yeah.
And so, we talked about it. We have the 7 squares happening, and in 2014 we've got 2 of them.
Yeah, we have.
But we've right at the beginning of the year, and going through till mid-year really, we have actually a grand square, a grand cross or a grand square, which means there's another planet joined in, and another 2 planets joined in actually. Would you like to explain this, Minerva?
Yeah, I mean, it's in all the cardinal signs, right? That's a really important thing. We've got Jupiter in Cancer, we've got Mars in Libra, along with Vesta and Ceres in early 2014. We've got Uranus and Eris in Aries, and we've got a bunch of planets in Capricorn. We've got the Sun, the Moon, Pluto and Mercury, all conjunct at new moon. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, I can see it.
So it's not just Pluto and Uranus facing off against each other or challenging each other. We now have these other planets joining in and it's with a grand square. I mean, it's quite a struggle, really.
It can be a struggle.
Yeah.
It can be a struggle, but it can also be a time of putting down really solid foundations, can't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's a question of what the foundations are. That's the thing. So that's where the struggle can come in, I think.
Right, so maybe conflicting energies.
Yes.
Or opposite things that need to be integrated.
Yes, that's right. So everybody, they'll all be speaking for themselves what needs changing and what needs... I mean, Jupiter in Cancer, that's... What's that talking about? That's talking about the need for change in community and family structures.
Yeah, definitely, and being more caring, being more caring for each other.
Yeah,
in the best way of Cancerian energy, looking after each other. Yeah, and
that's in opposition to the Capricorn planets, which are, of course, into structure, I mean, in Capricorn, and power with Pluto there. I mean, it's so there will be the forces that want to consolidate the powers that, and the structures that we have now.
Yes.
And that's where
that's where a lot of the resistance will be.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And then we've got these personal planets involved. We've got Mars and Mercury in that square. So it's actually a really good time to talk about everything, isn't it? So talk with other people, talk about how we can transform ourselves in society, and take action.
Yes.
Take action, and especially team action, because of that Mars and Libra. You know, like, it's a really great time to get together with other people and work out stuff.
Yeah. Yes. I think we're already seeing some really good things from the Mars and Libra happening. We're talking back in December, of course, and you'll be seeing this a bit later on. But I saw evidence of you know, there's still great protests going on, mass protests going on in the world, and I've seen footage of actually the riot police putting down their helmets and their shields and sitting down with the protesters and supporting protesters in more than one country
that was
recently.
in Thailand, wasn't it?
In Thailand and in Italy, I think.
Did you say Italy or Spain?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
No, but
okay,
anyway, there was more than one footage of that, and I thought, wow, this is really, you know, really something happening. And I think that's Mars and Libra, that cooperative, you know, instead of having these opposing forces, or some of the opposing forces that are there to control things are actually joining with the people who want to change things, you know. So,
right, so it's a positive energy for change if we can work out the things that need balancing with each other or integrating with each other.
Yes.
And work out the resistances to what's blocking us from making the positive changes in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are a few other positive things as well, but we'll talk about that in our next.
We'll come back and talk to you again about other aspects of the Uranus-Pluto square that we find really interesting. Okay, so see you next time. Bye.
Bye.